Hey there, everyone in computer science. Today we're going to be talking about arrays, which is sort of an introduction to arrays. We're doing lesson 13, bubbles 3 through 15. So to start us off, what we're doing is in the first one, arrays are basically lists. As you can see from both the example up here and what we're sort of putting in down here, the idea is that they're a way to sort of create a variable which shows a list of information. In this case, like all of our variables, we want to make sure our arrays are named in a nice and meaningful fashion. So in this case, what we need to do is we need to create an array which contains the even numbers from 0 to 10. So what we might want to do is just call our array even numbers, because that's nice and descriptive. And as you can see, we can do the equal sign like we do for other variables, but instead of having just a number, we now have square brackets to denote that we have a list. And so what we'll do is sort of make this all the even numbers from 0 to 10. So 0, 4, and doing a comma in between each item. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then we can just do console log, and we can just have it show up as even numbers. And it should, in our console log, show even numbers. So we'll run it, and what do you know? Down here it shows us, bam, we got it. And then one of the other things you can do is with your arrays is you can also add items. So if we create an array, and we call this one odd numbers, like it wants us to do in the example. So we have our odd numbers equals that, and then what we'll do is we have this new command that we can do where we can append items. So we can actually append odd numbers, and we can add an item to it. So in this case, say we want to add the item, the number 3, we can do that. Oh, whoops, accidentally did a colon instead of semicolon. And one of the cool things we can do is, like always, we can look at the read the documentation under C examples, and it gives us all the information of how we can use the function or the command append item. And so then when we do it, we want to use append item to add the odd numbers 1 to 11. So we can do this, bam, 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 and then just keep copy and pasting, bam, bam, bam. Now I'm sure, like me, you're thinking, wow, I wonder if there was a faster way to sort of append all of those numbers. You know, because we just added the same number over, or an odd number over and over again. If we could do maybe a loop to sort of see our information. And as you can see here, there's our odd numbers. And the answer is, of course, yes, we can, which we're going to learn about later through all of this. And so over here, what we're going to be doing is sort of using, is sort of making note that our arrays are indexed at 0. So this first item right here would be at sort of item 0. If we were to index our arrays and sort of like accessing our thing, like we wanted to see a certain number from our array. So if we wanted to find the first item, we could then do the command myArray, and then we'd do brackets. Because we start at 0, we want the first item, we would do myArray 0, and then we would want the last item, we could actually just copy and paste this, Bam. Our last item would be 9, because we started 0. And then lastly, it wants us to display the number 5 from the array. So 5 is actually spot 4. And so when we do this, the idea being here is you'll first try this, you'll haven't have read any of this because that's just normally how it seems to go for everyone, is you don't read. And then you do this for the starter code, you run it, and you would get the wrong things because you would be like 1, 10, and 5. And if we do that, we'll see that we'll end up with some errors. We run that, we get 2, undefined, and 6 because there isn't an 11th item in our array. And so we'll go through that, and then you'll updating and sort of figure out commands to update and assign things to your list where you can actually edit numbers within your array and sort of combine numbers outside of it until we get to a point which we'll sort of stop at here, where the idea is you're starting with an array which has 3 elements and you're going to uncomment the first command that references index that are out of bounds, and we're going to examine the output. So such as the array. So like right here, we'll uncomment this, look at what happens. It doesn't end up doing anything. Although it does actually end up doing weird things to that. So since it was sort of taking from out of bounds, it did something weird, and same with like here, it's going to do something similar. So we'll run it, and looks like that thing completely caused a crash. So let's try this. Let's reset it, run it, and what do you know? We ended up adding in another thing, those 40. So we're sort of examining this, and we're playing around with arrays, and should be overall fun, and overall arrays are one of the more powerful tools we end up using when it comes to data structures and coding. And they can be very powerful, and we're going to be sort of diving a little bit more into them. I'm only expecting you all to get about halfway through this lesson on arrays today, and we'll finish it up on Friday. And then we're going to be moving on into doing more complicated things with our arrays, such as putting other variables in our arrays, or updating items within the arrays through functions and all of that. So that's what's going on for today. Hope you find this video useful. Message me if you don't, or if you have suggestions. That's all. Bye.